one type of pollution. If you wanted, you know, soil, so sometimes people will use a brown marker to see how soil can run downhill. But basically, I like to just say red as a general sort of hazard color. And I just say to them, I want you to mark on your landscape where activities might take place. So maybe up here, someone is walking and they don't pick up after their dogs. So now we have some sort of pollutant there. Down here, someone might be washing their car, and we realize that all those soaps and all those suds could be rushing into our Great Lake. Over here, there's a construction site happening, and maybe there's a lot of soil that's eroding into our Great Lake system. Okay, so they can choose where they think some hazards might be in their landscape. And again, they can take their water catchment tray and put their landscape on there and make it rain once again. This is also great to do outdoors if you can, simply because some students really prefer to have water fights rather than make it rain on their landscape. So here we are now, of course, because we use red and blue, we can start to really see some pooling, and it's even turning purple because those colors are mixing on there. And so again, the red's rushing downhill with the blue color, really indicating that those hazardous materials are running into our lake. So it's a really interesting perspective, because sometimes when we talk about water, we really talk about the concern of what's happening on the water, but all of our actions in the land also impact that water. And so as a community that lives right on the shores of a Great Lake, it's all of our responsibility to make sure that we're taking care of the land to ensure that the lake is healthy as well. And again, linking that back to our drinking water, for example, here in our city, where we all think that that's super important to have clean, healthy drinking water, right? So, so that's one activity that is part of that, again, I've done online with students already. I just ask the teacher to prep the materials, or to ask students to collect them at home if that's the situation we're in at the time. And it's really interesting to watch kids sort of open their eyes to that experience. And as I said, they of course love the spraying of the water too. It's a bit of an action item that gets good results. Moving on to one of the other lessons around water experiments. And I wanted to highlight this activity, and I'm hoping we might get a few minutes to actually do it, because this is all about looking at water usage in our homes and understanding that not everybody has the same access to water, and that it takes a lot of work for some communities and some people in this world to be able to have enough water to cook their food and brush their teeth and do their laundry. And so that's varying depending on the number of people in your household, maybe where you're living, maybe what kind of water source is in your community. And so that could change perspective for a lot of us on how important water is to our communities. I do like to start a little bit with getting students to talk a little bit about what they see is a concept knowledge map. I don't know if anyone's familiar with these. This is an example of one, more around things like what water is needed for, what it's made from. And the concept map isn't quite like a mind map. We're not quite brainstorming about water, but more about the connections to water. So water is needed by living things, and it is made of molecules, and it can be different states. And so that helps students really get conversations talking about why water is important. And I've done these with JK students all the way up to high school students, because it just starts that conversation and sparks interest on the subject. And I find it super helpful as a background, because then by the end of your lesson, you can also come back to the concept map that students have created in order to make that to wrap up and bring together all the pieces of your conversation and why that might be important for that community. So because we are virtual, and I am not that tech savvy and couldn't really figure out how to help everyone make a concept map together, I thought we'd make a bit of a word cloud using, I don't know if people are familiar with Mentimeter. So on your device, if you're able to go to menti.com and simply enter that code. I'm just going to do it along with you here to make sure that everything's going to work as well. Maybe my phone will catch up. Perfect. And I actually just share a different screen. So hopefully I will be able to do that. I think it's in here. Bear with me for just a minute. Sorry, folks. Okay, so if you make it to that website and you use this code. Oh, maybe I didn't share the right screen. Oh, I know why. Is it gonna let me out of my PowerPoint deck? Maybe it's not gonna work. That's okay. So I apologize if it's not gonna work properly. It won't let me out of my slide. No, I can't even advance any slides right now. Hold on a second. I'm just gonna go back to this so that I can continue talking to you guys. sorry, folks. So what it's asking you to do on the web page there is to actually enter a word or words. I think I gave everyone the option of 2 different sources to use, or 2 different options, and you can have 2 different answers. So if water to you means maybe health, and another word for me when it comes to thinking about water, I think about I think about Lake Superior. Let's face it. So if I put those in there, if you've ever used Mentimeter before as a presenter, and a much better one than I am, then you will see, first of all, on your device, you'll see that it will have submitted all those to the main page, and then a word cloud starts to pop up and you can share that with students. And I have done it before, and I apologize. I'm not sure why it's giving me trouble this afternoon, but that's technology for you. So it is a really neat tool to use, and something, again, that you can use virtually. I've also done this in classrooms with like high school students, because sometimes most of them have a device, and so they're able to sort of participate, and they like to participate on things using a device. So I find that as far as engagement goes, menti.com is actually a really useful tool to use. They do more than just word clouds. You can do little surveys and graphs, depending on what platform or subscription, I guess I should say, that you're using. So really a great tool to use in the future. Moving on, I do have an activity that I've created that, of course, works lovely in a classroom setting when I can hand out pieces of paper to everybody, but it is a water usage game. And I like this because, again, it gives perspective to students around what communities or what different households, even in the same community, may be having access to water, and for what reasons, and what they choose to essentially spend their water on. And so I like to share this information because it's not always common knowledge to a lot of our participants that water is not accessible to everybody, unfortunately. And there's a lot of people that, either travel long distances to collect water, or they have a lot of water brought into their communities for whichever reason. And because I live here in Thunder Bay, and that's where I do most of my teaching, continually to emphasize how essentially privileged we are to live on the shores of Lake Superior, and that it is our responsibility to continue to make sure the Lake Superior is healthy for us, so that we can be part of that encouragement and that change for hopefully encouraging healthy water in other communities as well. This is just a simple graph to also help students understand that there are large numbers of people and communities that don't have drinking water or appropriate drinking water where they live. So again, being where we live on the shores of Lake Superior, we are very, very fortunate to be able to have access to that. And so it links it all back to us for our particular watershed in these activities. I wanted to break everybody into a few groups, but before I do that, I'm just going to explain what we're going to do. And It might get a little complicated, but I think it'll be okay. So I apologize if anybody gets a little bit lost. But I think what will happen is, typically, I would hand out a chart like this to students where we give them some tasks that they're supposed to complete with their household. So things like brushing your teeth, taking a shower, cooking meals, washing dishes, some pretty basic household things that most of us, or many of us, may take for granted or realize that these are just everyday things that we are able to do. I also include with them the type or the amount of water that it takes to do those tasks, to really give students an eye-opening perspective of, wow, every time I flush the toilet, I'm using 6 liters, so 6, pop bottles of water. That's pretty significant. And actually, for some of us on the call, we may recall that that's actually quite low compared to what it probably was when some of us were a lot younger. Toilets, luckily, have come a very long way, and we're not wasting a lot of fresh, clean water on flushing our toilets. But something like brushing your teeth, a half liter sounds like a lot, but in fact, that's a statistic that comes from measuring brushing our teeth 3 times a day with making sure we turn the tap off. So imagine if we left the tap on, what kind of water consumption we're looking at. We do a lot of talking to students that taking a shower, of course, is better. It uses less water than having a bath, and when that's possible. So again, but 40 liters of water, that's a lot of water to have a shower. And so if you're able to do that every day, then I think that it allows students to realize that it's a bit more complex than we realize. So if people are able to either sort of take note of this, or you can either jot down sort of the first 3 tasks, and maybe we won't get through all of it, and that's okay. But or just take a quick screenshot or a picture with your phone, because I'm going to need you to sort of understand this table. That I don't think I can share my screen once we break out into individual rooms, because then what I'm going to do, and I'll just give everyone maybe 30 more seconds to take a quick look at it and understand that I wouldn't mind if you could jot down or take a screenshot of the chart. And then what we're going to do is each group would then be given a scenario like this. So let's pretend you're a household of 3 and you complete some of these tasks, and you have a water budget, essentially, right? So this household of 5 up here, has a 105 liter per person limit. Okay, the household of 7 has 125 liter per person limit. And the reason why I've given these limits is because, again, not everybody has access to continuous water or access to as much water as some of these tasks might take every single day. So if you can see the screen, and when we divide into groups, I'm just seeing what time it is because I don't want to, maybe we won't divide into groups because I knew that this would take longer than I thought it would. So I think, so I'll just keep explaining the activity. So when you divide your group, your class or your whatever group you're working with into these individual groups, normally I would hand out cards, or we can put them into Zoom groups depending on if we're having to do things virtually. And they go through that chart and they work through trying to complete all of these tasks with the amount of water that essentially is given to them for that household. And it really is a bit of a reflection of that consumption, and realizing that, wow, I don't have enough water to do an extra load of laundry today, or I don't have enough water to cook an extra meal today, or maybe I have to have a shower every other day, depending on, these particular scenarios. There's several of them. I just put up 4 examples that we've been using. When I did pilot this with a class, it was a grade 7-8 class who typically in their curriculum work around water systems in grade 8, I believe it's grade 8 science. And really big eye openers to lots of them. When I go into the classrooms, I also, just as a side note, I do bring them calculators and stuff, because it just kind of makes the ease of the activity a bit smoother and less stressful for some individuals, so they can enjoy learning and doing it as opposed to worrying about the math too much. So when we do these, of course, I like to do a bit of reflection around these activities. And so with students, we do a bit of self-reflection first to see, if that's some new information that they might have gained, or if there was a bit of a self-realization in that particular activity. And then we can go as far as doing pair sharing or table sharing, depending on the size of the group and timing and everything else, and how engaged the class actually is. So I kind of choose my reflection and my debrief based on, after sort of reading the class at the beginning of the program, for sure. So last but not least, I did want to share this video with you, simply because I feel like it's super important, and a little bit more important than going through that activity together. But what it is this gentleman here in the video is Mr. Peter Cameron. He is a teacher here in Thunder Bay who created a program called the Junior Water Walkers, and very much inspired by, some of you may recognize her there, Josephine Mandeman, who was a water walker during her wonderful life on this beautiful earth. And he had his grade 7-8 students fully engaged in Lake Superior learning, environmental learning. And I want to share the video with you so that you can get a real sense of some of the work that's being done here on the North Shore and in Lake Superior, and some of the collaborative work that's happening with our Great Lakes Teaching Guide. And this is definitely a piece of that. So we did test this, and I know it works. So I'm just going to share. It's about a 4-minute clip or so.
For me, water is important because it connects us all. My name is Peter Cameron, and we're in Thunder Bay, Ontario, and I'm a teacher. I teach everything but music and French. We're passionately learning about the Great Lakes. We live on Lake Superior, living in Thunder Bay. We don't necessarily think about invasive species and declining water levels. We don't think that the Great Lakes are also at risk. This now is what I become passionate about. One day I opened up a magazine and I saw this book review on the water walkers. And it was a children's book. It was about a lady who had walked around all 5 Great Lakes in her quest to bring awareness to water. At that point, I just knew I had to bring the book to my students. We found the author of the book, The Water Walker, on Facebook. And so I messaged Joanne, and in contacting Joanne, I also found Nokomis, Josephine Mandeman. I asked her if she would visit our classroom. This opportunity that we have to share with Nokomis and Joanne, the author of the book, is incredible. We're all using different words to describe this journey that has brought us together today. A big word is serendipitous. It's supposed to happen. Water has brought us together. We created a Google Voyager story, and Nokomis, this story is the story of the Great Lakes. The Voyager story is one that is basically a thematic adventure using Google Earth along a learning journey. We had this opportunity to write these teacher-authored Voyager stories. 20 educators working in teams of 3 or 4. I sat down with a team, and after brainstorming for a long time, we created a pitch for a Voyager story called Blue Gold, Our Lakes, Our Lives. And the idea was we would use Google Earth to kind of take any student on a journey down the Great Lakes. Do you want to see it? The ability to travel is at their fingertips through Google Earth. This is going to be launched on Google Earth for all kids to explore at the end of June.
We're all born of water. We're all connected with the water. We're all related in that way, even though we're not related by blood, but we're related by water. So water is very precious for us.
Right now, you're looking at the new Junior Water Walkers. Hopefully, we will raise awareness.
It was just really neat to meet somebody who walked around the Great Lakes and raised a lot of awareness. It inspired me that anything is possible, and no matter how big the challenge is, I should never give up.
My students now are motivated to make a difference for the Great Lakes. Our hope is that classes throughout the world will carry on Josephine's walk and become junior water walkers and adopt one body of water and work in some way to protect that body of water.
I think I would carry it on by maybe spreading awareness and telling the younger kids about it, because they're the future generations, and then they'll tell their kids and so on and so forth.
They're going to be doing a lot of water walking themselves. They're encouraging other kids in other schools to do likewise. I know that they will make an impact. Their hearts are in it.
You want kids to get excited about coming to school? Have them have the opportunity to make a difference. People listen to kids when they use their voices in a powerful way. The world is in our children's hands.
There we go. Okay, that's fine. I can stop sharing my screen. All right. Yeah, so I thought I'd leave a few minutes if there was any questions. That story around Mr. Peter Cameron's class started about 5 or 6 years ago, and he continues to do that awesome teaching as well. And so we're working a bit more collaboratively with his class to or with his program to continue to create and add to our teaching guide as well. So quite inspiring.
I actually have a question. Is it online, the Blue Gold project?
It is, yeah, it's all online. If you can just Google Junior Water Walkers, and they've changed the platform a bit, so it's been updated in the last year or so, and they've created some interactive activities as well as some particular pillars that the program is learning through. So, and in the years that they do it, the class learns every year about the Junior Water Walkers story, and also actually do their own walk around a local inland lake here in Thunder Bay to represent their learning and what that is. So very, very, very powerful and very moving. And I think it's awesome that we are so lucky to have that resource here at our fingertips also as part of our Lake Superior learning. So yeah. So any questions, thoughts, concerns? This is what I always ask to students because sometimes they have lots of comments.
I do have a question. Hi, my name is Madeline. Thanks for your talk. I'm wondering what you do about eco-anxiety, because in my courses, I'm a student at OISE, and some of the readings that have struck me most have been Sobel and Moir, who talk about how kids need to build a relationship with the earth before they can really have the ability to tackle these big questions like pollution.
Yep.
Otherwise, it just leads to anxiety. So I was wondering how you address that.
So one of the ways I like to address it, especially with young children, is to actually try and give them an actionable item. I think children feel very empowered when they can actually see that they're making a change. So whether that's, going home and telling their parents about, turning off the tap while you brush their teeth. I know lots of grade 1 students, and I've had parents tell us, now my kid hounds me all the time. So giving them that little bit of that empowerment and that advice I find to be somewhat helpful. The other piece to that that we're actually really moving into here at Eco Superior is I am just finishing up a certification as a forest therapy guide. And so being able to start to bring students onto the land and have more deep nature connection through some invitation-led experiences, as a person that's experienced it myself and talked to others, we were hoping it's really going to be a way, especially for like high school students and junior and senior students that really might need a different way to connect to the earth. So teaching kids about hugging a tree, teaching kids about, just gently placing your hands on top of that water and feeling that power, it does relieve anxiety, and whether specifically eco anxiety, hard to say, but it's a way, almost like a coping mechanism, I guess you could say. And it is for me anyways. And so we really encourage students to, the actionable items part. And then our next step now is really going with this forest therapy piece that we're adding into our programming. Yeah.
Which also then addresses the relationship element.
Exactly, right? So getting them on the land, getting them out, and the forest therapy piece is going to be really focused first on urban forests so that it's accessible to all students. We have a number of great places, but you can't get there by city bus. So we want it to be on corridors and areas in town that students can access on their own time if need be. So yeah.
Okay, thanks.
If there are any questions, we really encourage you to use either the chat box or just do like Madeleine, unmute yourself and ask you a question. People really enjoy the arm exercise. Like I saw a lot of comments going on, and
oh, good.
Yeah,
I wasn't paying attention. It's weird. It's a weird feeling. And actually, if you're interested, that came out of this book called The Climate Change Playbook. And it has a whole series of activities like that. Most are more like in-class based where you need some materials, but that one, because it's like, it doesn't matter what the size of the group or you don't need any materials, then it's really also awesome. The other piece is, I know you saw the Water Walkers book in the video. There is a teaching guide that goes with that as well that you can find online. So people are, interested in how to maybe incorporate that into learning. That's something that's available out there as well. So, and then in the next year, we're hoping to officially launch our teaching guide. And we are also just finishing up a Lake Superior virtual tour, which means we've filmed and documented 5 of the major tributaries that run into Lake Superior within the city of Thunder Bay and talked about different significant ecological, historical, and cultural pieces of those. And it will be some flyover film and interviews with elders and things that really, again, help students connect to Lake Superior without having to be going on a field trip, which of course we all would rather be doing, but.
Do you have any social media where people can follow you?
Yeah,
and,
so just
just
at Eco Superior is our handle. I am not that person. We have a wonderful communications girl that does all that for us. But she tells me to use at Eco Superior if people ask me. And then if you're ever interested, my email is just erin@ecosuperior.org if you ever have questions or anything like that you're interested in. So
would you mind maybe adding it in the chat box?
Sure, yeah.
Can have you
that I know how to do.
Thank you.
If I spell it correctly, there we go.
You sent it to me directly.
Oh, see, I don't even know how to do it. Here we go. I'll send it to everybody. I can, yeah.
Okay. Time is coming to an end, but I really want to say thank you. It was amazing, and as everyone said, like, you really offer a concrete tool, and as educators is priceless. So thank you so much, and thank you everyone for attending this session. We still have one round-up session before our closing ceremony, so I encourage you to continue attending session and enjoy the rest of your day.
Great.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.